Hello, Canada, and welcome to another episode of One Soccer Today. My name is Adam Jenkins, joined by the man who puts the ops in tops, Jordan Wilson, and our friend Oliver Platt here. I have wisely taken my degree award off the wall. I'm going to set it safely on the desk so the curse of the host diploma does not continue, but we are excited for
degree.
Busy show. That thing was expensive and I lost it, so I had to replace it, so I don't want it to get damaged. Thank you for that tip.
That's I think that's like a North American thing. Like, we don't frame degrees in the UK.
Yeah, it's a North American thing for you to have to buy it, and then because they're a specific size, they want you to buy a custom frame from them because the $50,000 we give them isn't enough, clearly. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about something else in terms of bad news, capitulation, collapse, whatever you want to use as your adjective. We are still, as a collective, supporters, media, players, staff alike, trying to absorb and understand what happened at BMO Field just a couple of short days ago. That is, of course, Canada's failure to qualify for Copa America directly, also making it into the Concacaf Nations League finals. Lots of questions have been asked. I think yesterday was the decompress day, if we will, Jordan Wilson. So now that we've had a little bit of time to sleep on it, we can maybe come with a few more sober thoughts and talk about concerns in depth. And I'm going to start with you because these are positions you have played in your playing career. Center back, defensive midfielder. When you look at the areas of concern and the areas where the depth is not great, where would you place the larger portion of that concern? Would it be center back? Would it be DM?
I would say in the back. I don't think in the midfield as well that there are players where you're looking at that there's so many shoo-ins to play in that position. Competent players, when you're looking at like a K, Piet, Frazier. Sorry, these are guys that can play, but in terms of the way Canada wants to play, I think you need a bit of a more holding midfielder, someone who enjoys defending, someone who enjoys maybe not going forward as much and allowing other people to go forward and do their best work. But first, I'll start with the back. And Ollie made a great point yesterday, and I'm just going to back up that sentiment as well. As everyone's talking about, we want to change certain things, or a lot of people are talking about changing the personnel, right? Victoria's too old or too slow. And again, is there a player right now that can offer the leadership and the composure that Victoria offers? Like when I look at a Kennedy or a Waterman, are those guys better than Victoria game to game? I mean, it's tough to say, but my answer would be no. I think he's still coming with the quality. And then an issue that we saw a little bit on Tuesday night is that you have Cornelius, who's left-footed center back, very good one at that, and Kamal Miller that could play on the left side of a 3, but also as a left-sided center back as well for club and country. So those two playing at the same time, it's difficult. I don't think that's the remedy. You're looking for another right-sided center back to lead, to be good in the air, to take care of situations before they happen, right? To read the play. I think that's what Canada's needing. If they go and play a 3 in the back, someone to play in the middle that could command. The only person I see that plays in the middle and that does that is a Stephen Victoria. So right now, you're looking at the future, and 2026 is your guy that's going to be playing until someone beats him out of his spot. That's how I look at it. I don't think you should just give it to people just because they're younger or maybe that you think that they're going to be good. I think they need to be showing this in training. Beautiful as we're talking, we're speculating. All we can go off of is performances in the match. But I'm hoping that there are guys saying, you know, this could be my time, because those are two areas in the back, center back, and in defensive midfield or central midfielder. That's the spine of a team. And that I think Canada needs new blood and fresh players coming into it. When you're looking at the midfield, quickly going on that, it's just Eustaquio's a shoe-in. Even I know Tuesday night might be a rough night because the first goal, that's one that should be hooked in the channel. He should just kick it, right? He tries to take too many touches, get picked off. They end up scoring. And then the handball, even though I don't believe it's a handball, that still plays with you as a player. You think, oh, should I put my hand there? Should I have even been there? Whatever it might have been. But you have a K. Piet Frazier. Are any of those guys going in right now and you're saying, oh, this is a shoe-in to go and play and start and compete in the 11? And for me, it's not. I'm not slating them as players. I think they have quality. But in terms of the dynamic of the team that are going to go and like break up play forward, allow Davies, David, Laren, Buchanan, like the loads of talent, loads of pace that we have going forward, are okay with kind of taking a roll back and saying, let me just hold down the fort and allow people to go forward. So as much of talent that we've ever had for this Canadian men's national team, there are areas that still need to be bolstered and still need to be better. And for me, that's right in the middle. That's right in the spine. So hopefully we find some solutions for that soon.
Ollie, I want to set you up this way because the devil's advocate argument, the counter argument, and the one that I personally believe is no one has shown that they're ready, but no one is necessarily um, from that core convince others that this is a successful formula. And you could ask yourself, the quote is the definition of insanity, not doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. So now we have a few months off as a public and for Canada Soccer to make up the decision on a lot of things. But do you think the strategy, and that's the most important thing, let's all be clear, is whoever comes in as general secretary outlines a strategic plan and says, hey, this is what we're going to do. But do you think that plan should be same team, eggs in that basket, and win the match against Trinidad and Tobago, get to Copa America, and then reevaluate? Or do you think it is time now for a roster overhaul with some of these players? Because I will add to this, my fear is if it is the former and it's the same team to try and get into this match, well, then that's going to be the team that goes to Copa America and we keep kicking this can down the road.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think whoever is appointed as the new head coach on a permanent basis needs to be backed to integrate a new group of players, and I don't know if you want to call it the next generation of players, but to start planning for what this team is going to look like in 2026. And I understood the approach to this window because I just think it's difficult when you've got such a big two-legged tie against a good Jamaica team. You've got to get to Copa America. You've got an interim coach in charge. Like, enforcing that kind of change in that small window, one game in preparation before it against a very good side in Japan, the circumstances weren't good, in my opinion, for doing that and for achieving that in this particular time. But you're right, it has to come at some point, and you can't keep kicking the can down the roads. And I think starting in 2024, there's certainly a few positions we've got to look at, and we've got to say, maybe it's time to give some fresh faces an opportunity here. And I don't necessarily know that will immediately impact the starting lineup in the way that people might want, but I definitely look at kind of the periphery of the side. And I think there are some guys in their late 20s, early 30s right now, where you can start to look at players who are in similar positions that they were in when they were 24, 23, that kind of age. They were given an opportunity and have become very important players for Canada for 4, 5, 6 years. And now is the time to maybe start looking at the next group of players that fit that description. So there is definitely going to come a time for that very, very soon, I think. And I do think it's important that the new coach, when they go into Copa America, if they go into Copa America, is backed in a way where there's some understanding of, you know, this may not be perfect right away, but we are now starting to look at 2026 and starting to build what we think can be the best side to compete at that tournament, and not necessarily just looking at next week and what helps us get through the next game.
And I think there's an angle there that some people in the media, supporters, and various circles alike think when the calls for young talent and an injection of something different. I don't think anyone is suggesting you're benching Alphonso Davies, Stefan Eustáquio, Kyle Lair, and Jonathan David all at the same time. But if you're going to bring these people into camps, play them in games. And if they're not ready and you get that evidence, you at least know the answer. That's my argument. Now, I understand that it's important to get to Copa America and everything that entails. But I'm really curious if this January camp comes to fruition, what the team looks like, because I do believe that if they wait too long, they are simply going to run out of time. And if they're hoping, and let's be frank about this too, Copa America would be brilliant for this team, and Canada's good enough to make some noise. I don't think they're going to go out and win it. They lost their chance at a trophy by failing to qualify for the Concacaf Nations League finals. However, that's a pretty big tournament experience for a lot of these younger guys. If you don't think you're going to bring some of the veterans, that seems like a pretty good time to bring some young guys in who will likely be in 2026 and get them that taste. The solidifying the roster, Jordan, goes hand in hand with this. It's not just bringing in new players because the spine is there. There are lots of good pieces here, but it definitely needs to be reinforced in certain ways. Do you think that there is a way for Canada to go about this, whether it's luring in dual nationals or trying to think outside the box to try and improve what is, and let's not forget, is still very good right now?
Yeah, no, I think luring in dual internationals is the bread and butter in terms of finding those different pieces, right? Those different players, those players that maybe have grown up with a different background. As much as we love football here in Canada, we're still, in my opinion, not a football nation compared to other countries in the world. I think now what you're seeing is a better product of players that have a pipeline and start playing earlier, or go to other countries and playing earlier, and are able to come into the Canadian camp, and they've had different eyes on them, different coaches, right? As opposed to before, where I think the margin and the hole is just a bit too small. But when I'm looking at this team, I think it all really stems down to general secretary also having a manager coming in, because I understand Marabiello tenfold in terms of the players that he brought into this window, because you need if you're gonna live or die, you need to go with people that you trust. It's hard to bring in some new faces for these games that felt like a must win. They were a must win. You want to go and see that and solidify your spot into Copa America. But I guess the question is, when is that time to try new blood? When is that time to bring in new faces? And I don't think it was this window, but I think it has to be soon, because I agree with you. If you keep waiting for this opportune moment to play players, younger players, different players, fresh blood, right? It will just pass. It will fade. There will always be a more important tournament, a more important game that you're going to play the guys that you know. To answer your question about doing nationals, I think there are a lot of players that want to play for Canada. I think it's you look at Eustachio, which is crazy when you're looking at his stats 4 years ago. He was a player that was just getting his call up for Canada and just playing for the club in the 60-man roster, like in 2019. And now is a focal point and a piece that you can't really go past 2 or 3 names without putting him on a game sheet if he's fit. But there are similar players like that. And I think people want to play with the Davies, the Buchanans, because this team plays a certain way. They play attractive football. I think the biggest part of that is finding a manager who knows, hey, we need to get these duels. I think John Herman was great at that, but we need to get these duels. We need to get guys and find everyone to go and try to play for this team, and really recruiting, not selling people on Canada, but definitely like showing the product that Canadians have, the competition that you'll play. So for me, to answer your question simply, is about getting a manager, getting someone who knows the fabric of this country, who knows the past. And even if they don't know that as soon as they get the job, they have a clear identity of where they want to take this team going forward. They know the intricacies of the players, and they're like, look, this is what I want to do and the players I want to bring in. Because if you grab a couple of pieces, this team could be complete. So it's just about getting that right profile, that right person that knows about these guys and knows about this country. And then we're looking at a team that could really compete.
Oh, anything to add?
Yeah, I think in the short term, the dual nationals route is going to be the one that you kind of have to explore to get that immediate impact in the way that a player like Eustachio can make. I don't know how many are out there right now in terms of the key positions that you want to fill at centre back and in central midfields. Sometimes they come out of nowhere and you discover someone has a grandparent or something, and surprise, you have a nice player. So maybe we can keep our fingers crossed. But while I think dual nationals, because of the way the world is now, it's the same with the United States national team. I think that is going to be an important part of the national team's kind of process and recruitment in the future. But it's also not something you can really depend upon or rely upon. And the question for me, and a question that can't really be fixed in time for 2026 and is a longer term one, is why we've seemingly stopped developing central midfielders and central defenders. Like Eustachio grew up in Portugal. We don't have many players, of real international caliber who grew up in this country, who were developed in this country, who play in those two positions. And that's not always been the case. Like when you look back at Canadian teams that haven't necessarily been as talented as this one, you look at Julian de Guzman, you look at Jason DeVos, Atiba Hutchinson, even Stephen Vittoria. Like these guys grew up in Canada, went through their formative years in Canada and play those key positions down the spine of the team. And we don't seem to really have anyone at their level who's come through over the past 10, 15 years. So that's something that needs to be looked at, I think, and is important for the future. But again, it's not something, if you implement changes tomorrow, you're not going to see the fruits of them, maybe 5 years if you're lucky, but probably like a decade from now, right? So that's something that's longer term. And in the meantime, you kind of have to find ways to paper over the cracks a little bit.